Happy Sabbath, Mountain View Church family, San Francisco Japanese family, and anybody who's actually watching our senior Sabbath here at Mountain View Japanese Church. I have the privilege to actually interview a really good friend of mine and interview Jayson. We really want to acknowledge our seniors and those who have passed away, and during this kind of terrible 2020 season, we still want to remember those who have passed. And first of all, I want to introduce Jayson. Of course, everybody knows him, but for those who don't, this is my good friend Jayson Tsuchiya. When did we actually meet?
Actually met.
Yeah. Well, when did we meet?
I think we met once in 1965. Your family came over, but honestly, I don't remember. I just see the pictures of when you came.
Me too.
And just the old Volkswagen.
Yes.
With you and Mary Lou and your mother and your father and that's all.
I think we traveled to Mountain View, and that's our first time, remember, but we moved, and my father received a call to be the senior pastor here at Mountain View Japanese Church in 1976. So my first kind of remembering Jayson was that kind of right before, maybe a few weeks before the school was going to start at the academy. First of all, maybe you can tell a little bit about your dad.
Well, he came to the States with my mom. They were married, and he was originally supposed to go to Madison College. They took a freighter ship from Japan. I think it took 2 weeks, and landed in Canada and made their way down to the Bay Area somehow, and met the Kunihira family, Shiro Kunihira, who was, I think, pastor of Mountain View Japanese Church maybe at that time. And but my parents were originally supposed to go to Madison, but then they kind of somehow got sidetracked, I guess, because Pastor Kunihira said, well, why don't you try looking into PUC or maybe even La Sierra. So they checked out La Sierra, but my mom said, oh, it's too hot down there. It's too hot. So they settled at PUC instead of going to Madison College. And so from 1957 through 1961, that's when my dad graduated. And he was a theology major, actually. And his original plan was to go back to Japan, I guess, and maybe be a pastor or teach.
Ministry.
Ministry. But things changed. I think while he was here, he supported himself financially through colporteuring. And so while he was doing that, he actually found out that he's pretty good at sales. I guess he won all the awards and became top seller, and decided, maybe sales or that is maybe more my thing. And so I think by the time he graduated in 61, Pastor Shiro Kunihira, I think, asked my dad to come to Mountain View at that time because he needed help. He was, Pastor Kunihira was, like today, pastoring the San Francisco Japanese Church and the Mountain View. And so he needed help. And so my dad offered to come here. And so that's when, and by then I was born. I was born up there in Angwin or St. Helena in 1960. And our family moved down here in 1961. And so our family has established our roots here in Mountain View from 1961.
Real interesting. Tell me a little bit more about your father. Even though he didn't go into ministry, he still had a vision. And what was his vision for MVJ, or our church?
Well, I think at the time, there was a good substantial. There was always the Japanese speaking and then the English speaking congregations. He knew that there must be some way to try and minister to the Japanese community, and I think even during the 70s, that's he knew that things were developing here. I mean, it wasn't really Silicon Valley at that time. You know, it wasn't until the 80s maybe when this area started developing. But he could tell that, you know, he had his business in Palo Alto. Well, he could see that things were developing. You know, we had the old companies like Hewlett Packard, Varian, but then, you know, I mean, he saw the development of high tech coming, and he knew that at that time too, Japanese companies were eyeing this area, and he knew that there was a need. He often told me that, he goes, wow, you know, there's the Hoshuko, which is the Saturday school. What they used to do was, the Japanese families that were here, the few that were here in the Silicon Valley, would have a bus, right? And they'd take that bus, and the Hoshuko, that Japanese school, would be on Saturdays in San Francisco.
That's right.
Right? And my dad said, well, rather than have a school up in San Francisco, why don't we, he thought it'd be nice if we had a school here. That was his idea of, you know, starting some school, and through that avenue maybe be able to use that as some sort of evangelistic outreach to the Japanese community.
So I think that, with that said, I think that's probably how we came, right? Our family. Right. I was like 16, and I remember coming to this area.
Yeah. So that's a long story too, because right before that, maybe can't remember. Pastor Robert Nomi was our pastor for about 10 years, and he got a call to go up to, I believe, Seattle. And so my father thought, well, you know, we need to find maybe a pastor, someone who maybe has a background in, you know, this sort of thing. And at that time, Tozai Gakuen was I think it was flourishing quite a bit.
That's actually
in Gardena.
Yeah, that's where my dad was pastoring at the Gardena Church, and they had a English language school called Tozai back there in the 70s. Yeah.
So my dad said, well, you know, since Pastor Iwahashi has experience working with a Japanese school, he goes, I wanted to be able to set up something like Tozai Gakuen here in Silicon Valley. So he kind of campaigned, I guess, in a way to get the Iwahashi family up here, because he knew that Pastor Iwahashi would be a supportive pastor to try and help establish something like this. So
that's right. And I think we came, and I don't know, as soon as a year or so, we started, right? They started with bringing one teacher and one student in one of the classrooms at the social hall, right? And that's basically history from that point on. Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, this is amazing that how God works in different ways, about how ministries and how our church vision and you know, the late Mr. Tsuchiya's vision about having Sainku here, and it's still a blessing, and we want to continue to ask for your prayers. We have so much to talk about, but maybe you can tell me also about Uncle Peter Yoshida. You know, unfortunately, he passed away this year too, and it's so sad that many of our pillars of our church have passed away. Maybe you could tell me a little bit more about him, because since you basically grew up as a little kid all these years at our church, could you kind of share a few words about Uncle Pete?
Well, you know, I didn't always call him Uncle Pete. He was more like Dr. Yoshida, because he was my dentist. And he's part of the reason why I became a dentist, because I always looked at him and thought, boy, you know, he's able to, you know, work and serve people at the same time, be active in the church. You know, Uncle Peter was served as an elder, him and Frank, and for a long time, always been so supportive, you know, not only at the pulpit, but with Sabbath school. I know he got involved with teaching the children's divisions for so long, both Peter and June. Peter and that family has always been like all the Yoshidas. They've been
Right.
so supportive. The Yoshidas are all tied with, of course, the Asatanis, because Peter's mother is a family of many sisters, right? Who
Kitos.
the Kitos, and Asatanis,
Right.
and Yoshidas, but anyway, back to Peter. You can't say enough about him because he's done so much, and he's one that's never always was asking for. I mean, he just was always there,
That's
volunteering. So we really miss him.
I know. What's your hope, and how would you want to continue like your father's legacy going forward? As we kind of continue on with church evangelism and ministry.
Well, yeah, our fathers have laid a lot of the groundwork, and my hope is that we can continue, us and our children, to continue to support Sainku, the school. As you know, a lot of people know that we're in the process of trying to build we finally have a home, hopefully. Of course, we know that our ultimate home is in heaven, but as long as we're here now, we don't have to be jumping around from location to location. Financially, it's a big step, but actually, I think the Lord has led to the point where we're actually going to be saving by having our own campus. I think the Lord has showed us to be good stewards, and I think as long as we're here now trying to do the work of outreach, before Jesus comes, let's do what we can to be smart about how we use the money that we use and build a campus, and to be able to support the teachers, the faculty, the staff of Sainku and the church, and hopefully integrate the church and the school more so that we can invite more of these families and kids, because you can tell that. I think there's a need. We look at the signs of the times now, COVID, the fires, whether you're American, Japanese, or whoever, you're wondering what's going on in this world, right? And I think people are searching, they're looking for answers, and so I think this is prime opportunity. And it's amazing how, we don't have to go to Japan to be interested. They're coming here, and eventually a lot of these families will go back, but they have something to take back with them, and hopefully we can work also the churches in Japan so that when they do go back, they can continue to walk that spiritual life by fellowshipping or, joining the church eventually.
I want to thank you for this opportunity to share the story of our church, and we just ask you that you continue to pray for our church family, and also to continue the legacy of those people who have been a big part of our church and its ministry. And thank you. Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Bye.